Okay, Alexander, let's talk about the sham impeachment. And that's a quote directly from Rand Paul. Actually, he gave a fantastic 9-minute speech on the Senate floor, and he called it a sham impeachment. That's exactly what it is. It is a sham impeachment. It's a joke. It's theatrics. It's Kabuki theater. It's Trump derangement syndrome. It's Donald Trump living in their heads rent free for God knows how long. Maybe it's a way to keep the focus away from Joe Biden and keep it on Trump. Maybe it's all those things. But strictly speaking, this thing is ridiculous because there's no way that you can impeach someone who's not in office anymore. It goes against the Constitution. And case in point is that you now have Justice Roberts, who, if this was a real impeachment of a real sitting president, would have had to oversee the impeachment. But he's not even taking part because he realizes that this thing has nothing to do with the U.S. government, with the Constitution, or anything whatsoever with Congress or the responsibilities of government. It's pure theatrics. And Rand Paul's speech was fantastic. Everyone should look it up and listen to it. Fantastic speech. But Alexander, the thing is unraveling. It's falling apart. Even Biden himself, I think, said that there's not enough votes to quote impeach. It just sounds so ridiculous when you say it, to impeach Trump. We do have some rhinos, though. I have to say there are some of the typical rhinos like Romney and these guys who
Collins, yeah, Collins, Murkowski, Sass, all those sort of people. But can I just say, even Collins has admitted that there just aren't the votes to impeach. And well, we saw that. Now let's unpack this. Rand Paul, as you absolutely said, made an absolutely brilliant speech. It was beautifully constructed, incredibly clear, phenomenally incisive. I think, by the way, it will make him as a politician. It's the kind of speech that breaks through. And what he did was he not only exposed what a total sham this impeachment is, but the complete mental, moral, and political degeneration and collapse of the Democratic Party and the way in which they're dragging the Senate down. Because the Senate, which is, an incredibly important legislative body. It used to be considered, by the way, it was often spoken about as the greatest legislative chamber in the world, is now wasting its time on something which is completely ridiculous. How do you impeach a private citizen? That is what Donald Trump is now. He's not the president of the United States. Byron York, by the way, has done a brilliant article in which he points out that the articles of impeachment, the article at any one of impeachment that the House has sent to the Senate, which the Senate is supposed to impeach Trump upon, actually refers to Donald Trump as if he was still the president, when the president is actually Joe Biden. I mean, it is completely ludicrous. It is an absurdity. It makes no constitutional or legal sense whatsoever. And that is why Roberts has refused to have anything to do with this charade. Because let's be straightforward about Roberts. He is no great fan of Donald Trump's. We've seen this in many cases. But at the end of the day, he knows perfectly well that this is an absurdity, that this is a constitutional lunacy. And he also knows that if by any conceivable or possible chance Donald Trump were convicted as a result of this ridiculous process, and if the Senate were indeed to try to disqualify him and prevent him from running for public office in future, Donald Trump would have the right to challenge that decision in the Supreme Court of the United States with very high prospects of success. And of course, if Roberts had presided over this absurd Senate trial, he would disqualify himself from being part of the Supreme Court panel that considered that challenge that Donald Trump were to bring. So Roberts is absolutely right to have nothing to do with this. He's right on every point. I mean, he's right from a legal point of view, and he's right from a political point of view. This is an absurd, unconstitutional device. But here's the other absurd thing. You mentioned the fact that 5 Republicans, 5 out of 50, not Mitch McConnell, interestingly, but 5 out of 50 supported this ludicrous impeachment, so-called impeachment. One of them, who is Collins, now actually admits that there's almost no chance that Donald Trump is going to be convicted. So they're going ahead with a charade that can't even succeed on its own terms. What is the point of this? This is, as you rightly said, it is Trump derangement syndrome. It is the Democrats just losing their focus because of their obsessive loathing of Donald Trump. They're getting drawn into ever more foolish things. I stumbled there because I was going to use an even stronger word than foolish, but perhaps better not.
All right, so even a clown like Roberts doesn't want to take part in this clown show. That's my first comment. Even a clown like Roberts doesn't want to take part in this clown show. That says a lot. The Republicans, I think they should be primaried. Let's hope that they are primaried and these guys are finally gone from government, because they have no business passing laws in the United States of America. That's for damn sure. What do you think is the point of all of this? Because yes, it is it's derangement from people like Eric Swalwell and Adam Schiff and these dummies, who I really do think are very low intellectual, very dumb people. I really do believe that. I think they're just not altogether up there. But I don't think you could say the same thing about Nancy Pelosi or Schumer or people like that. These people are diabolical, sinister, diabolical, calculating. There must be a reason for them to do this outside of the fact that they hate Orange Man so much that they're willing to make a complete mockery of the United States of America, which is what they are doing. Because the people that I'm coming in contact with, and we're outside of the U.S., everyone is just scratching their head saying, how do you impeach someone who's not in office anymore? I mean, the whole thing is just, it's foolish, it's embarrassing, but there must be a reason why they're doing it. I mean, I really think there has to be some reason for Pelosi to be doing it. The other people, AOC, all these people are dummies. We know that. That we know. But what do you think is the reason that Pelosi and Schumer and...
Right. Well, first of all, can I just say I'm pleased that you brought up the point about what the rest of the world thinks, because, of course, one of the problems is that I think a lot of people in the United States read either, if they don't read the American media, which is, of course, extremely hostile to Trump, they read the centrist liberal European media, which is equally hostile to Trump. And that creates a kind of echo chamber effect. Around the world, and, I do follow what people are saying around the world, people are just incredulous. They think this is, as you absolutely correctly said, this is a clown show. The United States Senate is going to deliberate and seek to impeach someone who is actually now a private citizen in order to remove that person from an office which he has already left. It just doesn't make any kind of sense. And if you think people, in New Delhi or Brasilia or Buenos Aires or Moscow or wherever are impressed, they're not impressed at all. They're stunned. They are utterly staggered that the United States can be wasting its time on something as foolish and as silly as this. And that applies also, by the way, to US allies, countries like Israel, Japan, you name it, Saudi Arabia, you name it. Remember, in many of these countries, perspectives on Donald Trump anyway were very different from what you will find the liberal intelligentsia in the United States and Europe thinks of him. So that's one thing. But why are Pelosi and Schumer and those people doing these things? I think there's two reasons. Firstly, I mean, they've worked up their own base to an extraordinary degree. And I think if they were simply to turn around now, after all they've said about, what happened on the 6th of January and say, well, we're not actually going to do anything about Donald Trump because, we can't. He didn't actually break any laws. His speech wasn't incitement. What happened wasn't an uprising. We can't impeach him because it's unconstitutional. They would be facing the wrath of their base, and there might be primary challenges. So they have that concern. But beyond that, they are, of course, using this whole process in order to move forward their agenda in the United States, which is that what this is really about now is not Donald Trump himself as a person. It is about delegitimizing what he represents, saying that this was so appalling, so outrageous, so monstrous, so wrong, that even though it's unconstitutional to impeach him, we're going to impeach him. We are going to do everything we possibly can to stop him ever standing for election again. And because this is so bad and so monstrous, we're going to do all sorts of other things. We're going to have thousands of troops patrolling Washington until mid-March. We're going to do massive crackdowns across social media. We're going to pass all sorts of laws, all that sort of thing. And the impeachment is both a part of that and the way to legitimize that process too. So that, I'm afraid, is the agenda: appeasing the base and seizing the opportunity to promote their agenda, even if it means forcing the Senate to go through this ludicrous impeachment along the way. I'm going to say something about that. I think that in terms of that more, if you like, sinister agenda, in order for it to have succeeded fully, it needed the support, not just of the 5 Republicans who are well-known enemies of Donald Trump. It needed the core of the Republican Party lead in Congress to come on board. With the Republican Party looking solid in opposing this thing, this agenda is not really succeeding. All they're doing, instead of delegitimizing Trump and his movement, instead of achieving that, they are, on the contrary, emphasizing the divisions in the country, which, of course, they pretend they want to cure.
All right, so I'm glad you said that, because that leads to my final question, my final point. Could that be exactly why they're doing this? The last thing that you said. For example, I mentioned in the beginning that this is all a bunch of theater. There's Kabuki theater, a clown show. This is pure propaganda. I can't think of another word. So is the reason to go through this exercise all about creating a theatrical performance, in that they know they're not going to impeach him? I can't even say, even saying the word is wrong, but let's just use it. We know they're not going to impeach him. But the point of this exercise is to have all the mainstream media puppets there, to have the sound bites, to go through the whole process of saying the word domestic terrorism, incitement, insurrection, just saying that 1,000 times throughout the whole process. They're going to give every senator their speeches and their script. They're going to read from that script. They're going to talk about how terrible and how awful January 6th was and what an attack on democracy it was. We all know the talking points that they're going to go through. They're going to run through all this stuff, and that's the point of the exercise, is to just reinforce the fascism, the neoliberal communism that they're driving the country towards. I mean, this is in essence a theater, but it is a propaganda exercise. They are going to propagandize the American people to once again think about the absolutely horrible, terrible, 9/11 level incident that took place on January 6th. And of course, I'm joking. I don't consider January 6th, 9/11 or Pearl Harbor but that's what they want to do. That's the point of all of this.
It's constructing a propaganda narrative, and this is partly that. So you put on a show. You have the Kabuki theatre impeachment, as you say, and you repeat endlessly that this was the most terrible event that ever took place in the history of the republic since it was founded, or whatever, an attack on democracy. You talk, you use all kinds of an inflammatory language to describe the people who make up the Trump movement. We have to be careful what we say, but everybody who follows this video knows what we're talking about and the kind of allegations and labels that have been made against people. And I think that's what it's all about. It is about delegitimizing the Trump movement and what it represents. The trouble is, the 74 million people voted for Donald Trump. Not all of those are, of course, solid people, solid Republicans, but I suspect the vast majority are. And of course, there's all sorts of other people too, reasonable people, many of them probably voted Democrat. They will look upon all of this with growing skepticism and eventually outrage. And you can't sustain this too far. On the contrary, it will begin in time and in due course to backfire, especially when it is being accompanied by some of these extremely radical steps that the Democrats have been taking in the first few days, of the new administration. I mean, this raft of executive orders, which have basically loosened immigration controls to an extraordinary extent. This raft of orders on identity issues, which again, I think we're going to, unnerve many people. And people will say, well, this isn't really the unity agenda that the Democrats are talking about. The Democrats aren't talking about unity. They are talking about victory. And they want to achieve that victory over me. I am the person who will lose, because that's what it comes across as. And I think that before very long, especially if the economy encounters serious problems, as I predict it will, by the way, there will be a massive backlash. And far from achieving that unity that they talk about, they will find that they have deepened divisions in the country and that those divisions are going to work against them.
We'll see. I mean, yeah, I agree with you, but it's all leading towards a remaking of the U.S. and a remaking for the worst. That's where I see all roads leading. In this case.
Let me put it like this. It's not just an ambitious program that they're proposing. It's a reckless program. And I say it's reckless because there is no universal consent behind it. They talk about unity at the same time that as they're trying to refashion not just America's political system, but America's entire society in ways that many Americans, perhaps even most Americans, absolutely do not want. And in order to achieve that, they're, as we've discussed, talking about, the terrible attack on democracy that took place on the 6th of January. They're taking all these, radical actions to suppress dissent wherever it can be found, to delegitimize opinions, to use this impeachment to delegitimize Donald Trump and his supporters and the views they represent. But what they are doing instead is they're exposing the sham nature of this unity that they're proposing. And they are making themselves look to more and more people deeply objectionable. Again, I'm picking my words carefully. But most people around the United States, for example, are perfectly capable of saying to themselves, if Donald Trump isn't the president anymore, how can you impeach him? It's a simple question. People will be saying that to themselves already. So why are the Democrats pursuing him in this way? If they had the whole Republican Party colluding with this process, then it might work. But with most of the Republican Party, 90% of it, opposing it becomes very difficult. So I think what this whole episode shows is firstly the ruthlessness and cynicism with which the Democrats approach these matters and their obsession with Donald Trump. But it also shows the extent of their overreach, their failure to understand many of their own people, and it sets the scene for their eventual fall.
All right. Alexander Mercurst, thank you very much. Guys, look for us on BitChute, on Rumble, and on Odyssey. You'll find those links down below. Look for Alexander's channel as well. You will find that link down below. Look for my channel underneath Alexander's link as well. You'll find that in the description box. Also, make sure to go to the Duran shop. You will find that in the description box as well, and pick up some great merch. Maybe you want a nice hoodie, or a t-shirt, or a long sleeve shirt, or a mug. We have all kinds of great merchandise with all kinds of country flags.
Absolutely amazing merchandise. And can I just say, the feedback we get from the people who buy it is extremely, enthusiastic would be, I think, even an understatement. People just love the things they find on our shop. And as Alex rightly says, you support us, you support the Duran by coming to our shop too. Please check us out on our other platforms. Please support us as you can on PayPal, Subscribestar, and Patreon. And we look forward to seeing you in our next program.
All right. Alexander Mercurst, thank you very much. Until next time, everybody, take care.